Hi, I'm Rev Kimmy.
And I'm Dr. G.
We're talking about Riley's strain, the recovery, and autopsy. You will want to stay tuned because Dr. G, a forensic victimologist, university professor, and expert in drowning forensics, will address Riley Strain's parents' concerns relating to autopsy results, which are no water in the lungs, no pants, and no boots.
And then Rev Kimmy will share details of words of knowledge that she sent directly to Nashville Police Chief Drake in a series of emails several days prior to Riley's recovery. And for those who don't know, Kimmy is an ordained Christian reverend with over 20 years of evangelical and teaching work, as well as hospital ministry, to include work in the ER, ICU, hospice, and convalescent.
My ministry gifts so happen to work quite well on missing person cases. And Dr. G, please give us a quick background on this case.
For those listeners who are not familiar with this case, Riley Strain went missing March 8th, 2024 in downtown Nashville, Tennessee in the United States. He is 22 years old, 6 foot 7 inches, blonde hair, blue eyes, 155 to 160 pounds. His body mass index was 17.5 to about 18, somewhere in there. He was the University of Missouri senior with a major in finance and business. Riley walked east from his hotel and was at 3 bars in downtown Nashville. He was repeatedly seen on video walking north away from the direction to his hotel. He was kicked out of the last bar because of his behavior. And if you see him on the video, he's pretty intoxicated, stumbling and falling down. His phone pinged, and they picked that up down by a bridge, in the wrong direction, of course. And neither he nor his phone was recovered there, but his bank card, his ATM card, was found on the riverbank. Riley's body was then discovered and reported on the morning of March 22nd, 2024. He had been missing for 13 days and 9 hours.
There is still some talk on social media about Riley being a victim of the smiley face killers. And Dr. G, he was one of the original authors of that theory.
Yes, when I first came across that, I was a little bit surprised because it hadn't even come up on my radar. So I started examining it in light of the characteristics. I had 108 variables in my data set originally for the original analysis. And I always lose track of where it's at, but for those who want to see more detail on that, I did write a book with New York Detective Sergeant New York NYPD, the police department, Kevin Gannon, Case Studies in Drowning Forensics. And we had our work cross-checked initially by several people, to include Dr. Cyril Weck, the forensic pathologist who took on the NFL.
And if anybody wants to order that book, they can through Amazon.
Right. And Dr. Weck and Dr. Omalu took on the NFL for concussion. You can see that movie. So anyway...
I think you guys wrote this book actually intended for law enforcement to be purchasing it, correct?
Yeah, it was written as an instructional manual for law enforcement, hoping that they would look into the cases.
If nobody knows, if you guys don't know who Dr. G is, he's a professor, like I said earlier, criminal justice professor and teaching forensics and stuff like that. And he teaches active police officers and those who want to become police officers, as well as many other professions.
And crime scene investigators, CSIs.
And you teach forensic photography, everything like to take pictures of dead bodies.
And forensic victimology. I teach in the forensic science minor as well as in our criminal justice department. But we did a series. Kevin and I and 2 other New York detectives, Anthony Duarte and Mike Donovan. And it's called The Smiley Face Killers, The Hunt for Justice. And
yeah, you guys can watch it on Amazon Prime right now. But it's the 6 series episodes. It's not the movie.
Right. The movie it's fiction. But if you really want to learn something about science and investigation and that kind of stuff, not just these cases, but just, the science in general, especially drowning.
And the thing is that with these episodes, guys, if you're really interested in Riley's case, you're going to want to go watch these episodes because you can learn about the thinking behind it, the forensics and stuff like that, science behind it all.
Yeah.
And on these cases, the police have determined that these are accident drownings. However, not the group of these detectives and Dr. G who say, no, these are homicides, and they prove scientifically why. It's not just a theory. And so Dr. G is actually the perfect person for many reasons to be the proper person to analyze Riley's case and whether or not the parents are right or the family who are looking at the results for the autopsy and shaking their heads going, wait, he didn't have water in his lungs? Yeah. Now, I remember when I was using my gifts on your cases, the Smiley cases, I analyzed that I picked up with my gifts. If you guys don't know, I have prophetic gifts as a Christian minister. Yeah. And I remember picking up about that one did not have water in his lungs, not knowing or learning about that yet, which Dr. G will go in and he will teach us. And some of the information might be the first time you're learning this, and it can be rather shocking.
Yeah.
You would think people who drown do have water in their lungs all the time.
Actually.
But he's going to teach you otherwise.
A really good episode to watch of the TV series, the documentary series, would be the very first one. It's an hour and a half. Dakota James in Pittsburgh, and there's a lot of similarities in the forensics in this one. But when I looked at Riley, if you want the details on why I am not including him as one of the potential smiley face killers victims, you can go back and listen to episode 11 of our podcast series. The one
of Riley Strain.
Yeah, and I go into that there. There were only 3 characteristics that I could find where he matched, and 5, actually probably more if I really get into it and start doing the mapping and everything, where he does not match. But back to
go to the episode.
Right. So Dakota James, that episode 1. And in the book, there's just a whole bunch of stuff that directly addresses what we're talking about here. A few things before I ask you to read yours, and then I get into the science of this. A lot of the media is reporting that this is an accidental death, which is true. But they're reporting it as a cause of death, and that is incorrect. The cause of death should always be medical, and drowning is a scenario, not a cause. A cause would be the lack of oxygen in the bloodstream getting to the brain, so a hypoxia or something like that, or whereas strangulation, ligature strangulation, manual strangulation would be something that caused the hypoxia. But then you have manner of death, and that's what they're really talking about. And we use, I teach an acronym, NASHU, Natural, Accidental, Suicide, Homicide, and Undetermined. And so this falls under accidental, is the way it should be classified. And then some of the other details we'll get into here in a moment. But just so you know, and this is why I say Dakota James's episode is really good. I got deeply involved with the regional director from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in that program. And so I'm familiar with how to read their documents and stuff like that. So I did this for this case, and I found online that the Cumberland River was moving through there, according to the data, at this time of the year. It varied between 2 to about 4 miles per hour. That's pretty slow. And that the water temperature was varying at night during the day between 40 and 55 degrees Fahrenheit. So given that and what I know about different, like the East River in Manhattan, on the east side of Manhattan, and different bodies of water, I wholly expected him, if he went in where they think he did by that bridge, that he would go down and come back up within about a football field of that location. Not too far, and if he did float, it would be very, very slowly. He'd be easily spotted, and the temperature would dramatically retard maceration and putrefaction, so decomposition would be very slow. He would stay down a little longer than normal, should be 8 to 12 days, and he did come up, like I said, 13 days, 9 hours he was missing. So given that now, accidental drowning, and he should have shown up locally, I would like, and we'll comment on some of the family's other concerns. I hope I address them for them. What did you tell the police chief in your emails, Rev. Kimmy?
Well, one of the things, I told many things, but I do want to highlight, I did tell them that your opinion was that he was going to come up 8 to 12 days.
Yep.
Okay, so on the record, we did put that in writing to the police chief in Nashville, Police Chief Drake. Okay, so I wrote the police chief in Nashville a couple of times, and I'm not going to read all these emails, every detail, but I'm going to read some things that I did say that did come to pass as facts that were accurate, okay? And there was nothing I stated that was inaccurate, okay? But I'm not going to waste your time with all the details. You'll have to hear some of those other details in episode 11 of Riley Strain's other episode that we have. Okay, so I said that eventually he's going to be located and recovered at an area of the river, not in the area of the river where he fell in and or last pinged. Then I said, when you guys find him, you will be surprised regarding the distance.
Yeah, and now this email you're reading from,
I forgot about telling the date.
About 5.5 days after he went missing, about 6.5, almost 7 days before he was recovered.
Okay, now, if you guys don't know me, I'm a litigation and trial paralegal over 30 years at the top law firms of our country, the top attorneys of our country, okay? Usually representing celebrities and known corporations, okay? You could go to my LinkedIn. You can look at my bio there. It's found as Kimmy, K-Y-M-M-I, Bloomberg, B-L-O-O-M-B-E-R-G. Okay, so I said about the distance. What I wanted to, I'm very detailed is why I brought that up, litigation, trial, paralegal. So what are we reading from? An email to Chief of Police at Nashville.gov. That is to the Police Chief Drake. Also CC'd on every single email. I CC my law enforcement reference. He used to be the captain of a homicide bureau of a large Los Angeles law enforcement agency. He is confidential. I will not say, but law enforcement knows. I tell them who he is. He's CC'd on every single email, and now he was promoted to commander of all detectives at the same law enforcement agency. So he's pretty high up, and he's CC'd on everything. He reads, he's a witness. Because I feel the reason why I do that is, how can someone be a reference for me without knowing what I'm saying and doing? So I CC him on everything. So he can shadow what I'm saying. And if he doesn't like the way I behave, he can bounce, right? He could say, good luck, Kim. But he hasn't done that. He has been my reference for years. Okay? God bless him. So, another thing is, I wanted to ask you, I said, when you guys find him, you'll be surprised regarding the distance. I asked you, Dr. G, what is the average distance that an individual, when they go into the water and where they're located, recovered, when a drowning situation, how far do they travel? Usually, the common average.
Typically, they, especially in a city environment like this, you have several bridges they have to make it past, and there's a lot of barges in the river. We didn't have, I really expected there to be a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers lock and dam somewhere in there, but there isn't. It's way downstream. But there's so many barges along that and bridges that I would have given him a mile maybe.
But what's the average that the person's found on cases? A drowning victim usually travels how far from the point of falling in?
A lot of it depends upon the speed of the river, and this is a very, very slow current, 4 miles per hour.
Yeah, but all the cases you've worked, the average is about a football field, I think you said earlier.
Yeah, the East River, yeah, they usually show up 300 feet, 100 yards. You know, that's the East River in New York, heavily traveled and very high current. And so here, in a lake, they usually come up almost right where they went in. But I would say 100 yards maybe.
Okay. All right. So,
definitely no more than a mile.
So he was found 8 miles further.
Yeah,
so
downstream, 8 miles, yeah.
And I had said that, right, prophetically. The Lord had showed me, when you guys find him, you will be surprised regarding the distance.
Somehow he made it go. Roll back to the top of that one.
And that was in an email, March 14th at 3:06 p.m.
You also said then that he thought he was going in the right direction towards a hotel, but he went in the opposite direction. And that is true, folks. And then you put, he inadvertently fell in the water and drowned. And that's true, too.
Yeah. Well, I also said he doesn't have his phone anymore.
That's right.
He was found not with his phone.
Yeah.
I'm not going to read like tons of these details, but just some. Got also, another email to the police chief on March 16th at 3:59 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote to him a lot of things, but I'll just highlight. God showed me that Mr. Strain accidentally fell into the river, as we said. No one put him in the water. There is no foul play involved in Strain's case. This is a very unfortunate accident on his part.
Yeah, and they wrote in the autopsy report that there was no obvious signs of trauma, as in weapons, guns, or knives. So, I mean, it seems to me pretty obvious. I'd have to see the autopsy photographs, but it sounds like there was no indication of a ligature around his neck or his wrist or his ankles or anything like that, you know, that he was bound and tied or strangled, injury-free, which is, given the very slow current, if he was floating the whole time, yeah, I could see him right down the middle, missed everything.
Also on March 16th at 3:59 p.m. in that email, I wrote to the police chief that Mr. Strain is currently underwater because everyone thought, you know, he's in this building. He's being, you know, held against his will, and he's been taken off, and serial killers have him, and all these scenarios. But I said, no, you know, he's in the water. He is currently underwater, and that's why, you know, people can't find him. And he's against the shoreline underwater. Something seems to be holding him down. Maybe it's his own body, or he is stuck. It's against rocks or boulders or branches under the water. Something was holding him under the water. Mm-hmm. Now, when that employee found him and called him in, he said he had to remove a branch or a trunk, a log, from a tree. He had to remove it to see his head, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's true information as well.
And we just read that this morning, too.
Now, yeah, I didn't know that. And then so my last email to him, March 17th at 6:47 p.m., I said, Dear Chief, I just finished praise and worship for about 30 minutes, and God began to show me what will occur. God showed me a boat. A police boat or some other type of agency boat, an official boat. In the river, it was stopped, and a couple of men are in the boat. They are pulling a dead body out of the water. The Lord said, not audible voice, it's just an impression on my spirit, He will cause Riley Strain to be found, to wait on the Lord and to trust Him that He will make it happen. God then showed me that Mr. Strain is under the water right now. Mm-hmm. And all of those things came to pass.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to tell us about?
Yeah, I read.
He's found with no boots on,
Yeah,
pants.
I read a statement this morning.
He
It
has
says,
no water
usually
in
water
his
in the
lungs.
lungs means that they are alive when they went into the water. Yeah, that's really a misconception. When I first started dealing with drowning cases, the smiley face cases, I thought that too. Lack of knowledge. I figured if they drown, they've got to be inhaling, sucking in water, and their lungs should be just absolutely full. They should weigh more than 1,000 grams, the two lungs. And their heart might even have water in it. And so their pleural cavity, their cardiac cavity, the pericardial sac all be full of water. But, that's not true. That's absolutely not true. And as I started studying it more and more, I was reminded of something that I witnessed when I was in the Army. We had to do a march for the expert infantryman badge. And they told us before we left that when you get back, don't rush right over to the cooler and grab a cold beer or a cold pop, because the cold liquid will cause the back of your throat to close. And I had already come back, and I was standing there, and this young lieutenant come cruising in, and he walked over immediately and grabbed a pop, a soda, out of the cooler and started drinking it. And next thing you know, you see his knees go rubbery, and he went down like a bad habit and fell to the ground. And the medics who were on site went over and rushed over there. His throat had closed shut. He quit breathing and passed out. And applying that then to the science of drowning, and for folks who don't know, I was pulled out of a swimming pool in 3rd grade. So I do know what it means and feels like to drown.
So you died in 3rd grade from drowning in a pool?
Yeah. They fished me out and did chest compressions, and I remember coughing up water. And for parents who've lost someone that way, it didn't hurt. And of course, I was too young to realize what was happening.
Was it peaceful?
It was peaceful.
You just
what hurt was breathing air again.
Oh, after when they were doing CPR on you?
My gosh, did that hurt. But when I was underwater, I could see the surface, and I just couldn't get there. Anyway, there's plenty of studies out there. If you look in our book, we repeatedly talk about it. I could give you 30, 40 sources on this same topic. But in summary, there is a really good article from OJP that we can reference, and the Journal of Forensic Sciences. But here's an excerpt from my book, Case Studies in Drowning Forensics, Chapter 3, page 33, Empty Systems. Not all victims of drowning aspirate water. Typically, people refer to an older study which reported that 10 to 15% of all cases are dry drownings. That's what they call it, because there's no a wet drowning would be lungs that weigh more than 1,000 grams are full of water.
Dr. G, can I say something?
Sure.
Guys, an easier way to understand this dry drowning is drowning without aspiration.
Right.
Doesn't that make a little more sense, and we can understand it a little more?
Yeah, there's 2 things that could cause that: stubbornness and a physical response. Stubbornness, a person just absolutely refuses to breathe water.
Shock.
And so they pass out from a lack of oxygen and then eventually expire. Another one is, and this could be very well be the case, because like I said, the water temperature is 40 to 55 degrees. And that cold water hitting the back of the throat could cause the esophagus, the airway, and everything to just close right up. A drowning is referred to by this term when there is no water present in the lungs. This can happen due to a laryngeal spasm. And sometimes you can still get the pink foam in there, or a little bit of it. Usually the pink foam is from the water getting in the lungs, mixing with the oxygen, but the process of the spasm can break some blood vessels, and you won't see petechia. The person just looks like they quit breathing. It's called a dry drowning.
Spasm too.
Yeah,
when they have the.
So it is entirely possible for a person to not have water in their lungs and to have died from hypoxia, the lack of oxygen, in a drowning scenario.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to research one article, I am looking at a U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, NCJRS, Virtual Library.
Yeah, National Criminal Justice Reference Service.
It's called Drowning Without Aspiration. Is this an appropriate diagnosis?
Yeah.
It's from November 1999. And so it's Journal of Forensic Science, volume 44. And they explain about people dying without water in their lungs.
Yeah, and that's one thing. Typically you talk to medical examiners and they'll say that drowning is a last resort. That if they can't figure out why a person died and they're in the water, then they must have drowned. But I think Kevin and I clearly show in our book that there are forensic indicators of drowning, to include the gallbladder and a bunch of other stuff. And the difference between a murder on land and a dump in the water and an actual drowning. I have looked at a lot of cases that were actual drownings, but that's not what we're here about. We're here about Riley, and I think it's entirely possible that if he was as drunk as he was, I mean, he was stumbling and falling down, walking.
As we all witnessed.
Yeah, running and walking, falling down. So did he stumble and fall, strike his head? Or did he succumb because he obviously, in the short time he was in those 3 bars...
They said there was no injuries or signs on his body of any foul play. So he didn't strike his head to where the point that there would be some kind of bruising or et cetera.
Well,
whatever.
we have to wait for the toxicology report. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he succumbed to alcohol poisoning and just passed out. And then when he hit the water, he wasn't breathing. Or he had the laryngeal spasm. But now to address another issue of that the family had, the other one, that he was missing his cowboy boots, his pants, his wallet. All he had on was his shirt and his watch. Some are suspecting that he was aggressed, assaulted. I haven't seen the autopsy. I promise you, if I had 3 minutes with the autopsy report and a handful of select photographs, I could tell you exactly how long he was deceased and what was the cause and manner of death, most likely. And my work has been checked by Cyril Weck, like I said, and Kevin as well, and he was trained by Vernon Gebert.
I do want to interject something.
But you can lose. People commonly lose, especially the articles of clothing on their lower body. Socks, underwear, shoes, pants. It's not uncommon.
Now, if people don't know, I'm requested from law enforcement detectives to work on missing person cases to help them, or cold cases. I've been doing this since 1997. My first case was Kristen Smart's case. Her initial homicide detectives, they hunted me down and asked me to help them because I had spiritual gifts. So anyway, I'll let you finish what you're going to say, and then I'll interject.
No, that's just it. That losing articles of clothing while in the water, especially traveling 8 miles, I mean, that's good grief. That's really quite a ways. And if there's no water in the lungs, then he should have been naturally quite buoyant, especially after that period of time, 13 days. He should have been floating quite well, actually, after resurfacing. The current and everything would have had sufficient time and opportunity to remove all of his clothing. I'm surprised he had his shirt even. Yeah,
and so what I was going to say, I just didn't want to fully cut off Dr. G. Right now I'm working a case, one of the Smiley cases, right? Or a suspect of one. It's several years old. I'm not going to mention the name, but the mother came to me and asked me to work the case. So I am looking at real recovery photos, and the individual has his pants that are down.
They're on their way off.
Okay, yeah. They're inappropriately down. I mean, you can't walk around like that. So, so pants do come down. That doesn't mean anything happened to them from another individual being involved. It just means that, you know, the current has done that, or any other things that you want to interject there. But I am looking at photos of a real person who on recovery, so that I could, you know, pray and get the insight. The mother wants some insight what happened to her son. So I'm doing that for her, and that's pro bono as a way of helping victims.
Yeah, yeah.
So Riley's case is not the only one where he is found without his pants on, right? Or without his shoes on. And it's very unfortunate. It's super sad. And our prayers go out to his family.
Yeah, and I put this out there. I always work pro bono, as you do. And if the law enforcement, if the police chief or the family would, or a private investigator, if they hire one, would like me to provide some input to look at reports and photographs, then they just have to reach out to me and let me know. I'd be glad to do that and write a confidential report.
So what do you feel about the pants and the boots, Dr. G? I gave my opinion.
Based on what I've seen so far, and I have no reason, even though I've questioned some autopsy reports, I have no reason to believe that this is fictional. And had there been any injury or sexual assault, it would have been noted. And the police chief, the FBI, the U.S. Marshals, whoever else is involved, would be taking a completely different stance on this case, and they'd be looking for suspects or suspect in this case. It's a very, very sad situation, and I reiterate what I said in our last podcast. Guys, you got to watch out for each other. Women do it, and you don't see the fire department out there fishing women out of the river and out of lakes and stuff like that. They watch out for each other.
Well, we're not saying they didn't. I mean, they may be people who...
Well, sometimes it's guys' pride. We don't allow others to watch out for us. In the Army, we're taught that, the buddy system. Mm-hmm. You know, we watch out for each other. That no man left behind,
well,
that goes a long way.
I think Riley's mom said that the boys who were with her, the young men, are crushed over this.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they care very much about Riley, and their hearts are broken over this. So,
yeah.
So what do you?
Another case we're following.
What do you want to say with regards to the pants down and the boots off?
I see everything as being normal within parameters for a drowning.
Is it the current that brought his pants down?
I'd say it's the current and
the boots. You know what? The cowboy boots. They're a different type of cowboy boots. I wear them. I have a tight type. I have the square front that's looser, and I can see the loose one that he had on those the square boots. Cowboy boots. Those are looser. They can come off. Yep. I believe it came off in the water.
Okay. I think that's it. If you folks have any comments, questions, or you would like some personal words of wisdom from Rev Kimmy, that is an option. And you can follow us. She has her Facebook page and LinkedIn and a whole bunch of places where they can find you, right?
You know,
and they can email us too.
I do want to say something. I think that law enforcement is stoned to death out there. I just want to say that on a personal note, and the things that I witnessed working on missing person cases since 1997, working in collaboration with the police, and I'm not going to go into great detail, but these are nice people. They have really good friendship qualities. I can't imagine being the first person to always be showing up to handle all this drama, right? On cases. I think that Police Chief Drake and his crew in blue did a great job.
Oh, yeah.
I really do. Don't forget about the dogs, guys.
Helicopters, drones, boats, dogs, people on foot.
Yeah, but it went beyond the times. Went beyond the time. He's a professional man.
Yeah, we could watch him here on TV, and he looked like he was like
tired.
5 days overdue.
Yeah, and I told him, congratulations that that they found him, and now get some rest is what I said to him.
They did a bang-up job.
I think they did, and I'm not just saying that. What am I getting from this? What am I getting from saying this? Yeah. I could say if I don't like someone. Most of my close friends are cops because for reasons that they have really good quality, friendship qualities. Yeah. They're nice people, So I just want to say, take the time to, if you felt they did a good job, you guys should write the police chief and tell him that. So I think that, if you guys feel that they did a good job, we shouldn't just write people to complain. We should write people to build them up.
Yeah.
And so I wrote him and said, you guys, did a great job. I've said it on the podcast episodes on Riley's case. So, there's no reason for me to say that, but that I mean it. And I applaud them. And if you use some logic, they worked really hard at trying to help and find him. And then all of a sudden they dropped the ball on the autopsy? Yeah. That doesn't make sense. They did a thorough job on the autopsy.
Kevin, Anthony, and Mike will agree. Most law enforcement agencies, they'll look for a missing person for about 4 days, and then they'll wait until they show up.
Yeah, they waited a long time, and then towards the end, they even brought the dog in.
Not these guys.
Yeah, you don't witness that. So I applaud them. Great job. And so, we have to stop the cop badgering thing. That just as there's some bad medical doctors, not all do that, or all, not all Catholic priests do that to children, or etc. We can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We need to keep perspective here.
Badge bashing.
And so, yeah. So, and also, we want to keep in mind, please, everyone, pray for Riley's family members and parents for some time. Let's hold them up in prayer and pray that God heal their memories and heal their broken hearts.
Amen.
And, create provision for them if they need that financially, some kind of restoration. So, and thank you for listening to our episode on Riley.
And what's our email address so they can reach you? It's revkimmy, period, or dot, DRG, Dr. G, REVKYMMI dot DRG at gmail.com. And, if you want to reach out to us and you'd like your own personal session or just a comment, that's the way to do it. Yeah. Thank you for listening.
God bless you all. Talk to you at the next episode.